Welcome to By The Talons, where the Philadelphia Eagles season never ends.
The Eagles win, the Eagles win, the Eagles win! Troy Vincent has picked them off!
With your hosts, Dave Searles and George Kassakos.
What's going on, Eagles Nation? It's Dave Searles and George Kassakos at By The Talons for Episode 2. So much has happened with this Philadelphia Eagles team since our first episode. We have a great show lined up with Ben Natan to talk about the quarterback moves, but a whole lot more has happened with this team, and we really have no idea what's going on with the team at this point. It'll be really fun to see how it goes. Before we get started, just want to take a moment to thank Mike K for his kind comments on BGN Radio episode 88, alluding to the new generation of Eagles writers, bloggers, podcasters, media personalities, whatever you want to call it. We're all in this together, and it really just meant a lot to come out and acknowledge that because, you know, we're the small fish.
Yeah, exactly. And Mike has been very helpful to me from the get-go, like some time ago, and he's always there to give advice and whatever, so thank you.
I also want to say congratulations to a good friend of ours here at By The Talons, Robert Murray, who is leaving, and by this time has already left, Eagles Twitter to pursue his dream of becoming a baseball reporter. He's got big things on the way, so he's a great guy. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Robert Murray, capital D, capital R. Probably won't be talking too much more Eagles because he's about to get a lot more busy, but has some great times, and can't wait to see him become a star.
Good luck, Robert.
Yeah.
I don't know much about baseball, so I don't know. I can't tell anything about that.
And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at By The Talons and check out our YouTube and SoundCloud. On SoundCloud, you can actually download the episodes in case you can't use YouTube at work or for whatever reason. But we're out there, so make sure that you're following our Twitter so you can keep updated. With that, George, I'm going to hand it off to you. I want to talk about some Eagles.
Well, where to start from? It's been a crazy fortnight, really. Let's talk first about the players who waved goodbye to Philadelphia. And first of all, Trent Cole is not anymore with the Eagles. He was cut from Chip Kelly, and he's now with the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts really went after many big names in free agency. They got Cole, they got Hermans, they got Frank Gore, who was about to come to the Eagles. Yeah, and they're definitely trying to build a championship team. The only issue is they're going after free agents that are over 30 years old, so this window won't be open for too long.
Yeah, I made a joke. I mean, they actually signed Andre Johnson from the Houston Texans, too, and I thought it was funny that signing Andre Johnson, who, you know, is going to be 34, is still actually getting younger at wide receiver compared to Reggie Wayne was, who was 36 years old. Be that as it may, Trent Cole, this one hurt, and it really did, because he was the closest thing we had to that Brian Dawkins-style leadership, that guy that you just know is going to be on the field on Sundays. This one stung. Yes, he was probably losing a little bit of his athleticism. He wasn't really the future or even the current anymore, but it meant a lot to just see him on the field giving his all, and that is going to be missed far more than his statistical production.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it would be nice if we saw exchange of roles between Cole and Graham taking the starter role and Cole coming in as a rotational player, because I still think Cole is very valuable and has things to offer, especially to the Eagles, because it's a team he played all his pro football career with, and we all know he cared about Philadelphia, and he was no doubt the leader of this defense on the field.
This one's going to split the Eagles fan base a little bit more. Even though it hurt to lose Trent Cole, Jeremy Maclin is no longer a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. Signed an $11 million per year contract with the Kansas City Chiefs after the Eagles reportedly offered somewhere around $9 million during the season, before contract talks eventually broke down. Macklin's gone. The future of the Eagles wide receiver right now, Riley Cooper, Josh Huff, Jordan Matthews. I mean, that's a huge need right now, and it definitely hurts to see Macklin gone.
You forgot to mention Jeff Mail.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that pretty much was a big blow to the fan base. I think Jeremy Macklin, we all wanted him back. I don't even remember reading something like, "Oh, we shouldn't go after him and resign him and whatever." But I think for that price tag, I think the Eagles did well and didn't overpay for him, because this is, if I'm not mistaken, top 3 money. And as good as Macklin is, I don't think he's a top 3 receiver in this league.
Well, the crazy thing to me is that, I mean, I'm eating crow here already. I was a Macklin detractor prior to his re-signing on a 1-year contract. I was kind of like, he's gotten hurt a lot. Maybe it's time to just move on and try something new. And then he comes back and puts up a career year, and all of a sudden I want him long term. And he bet on himself. He won. He's going to get that money that he wants. I just wish there was a way it could have been in Philadelphia.
All right. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends how you see it, Macklin and Cole were not the only Eagles players that departed from Philadelphia. Chip Kelly pulled off a trade. LeSean McCoy, our beloved running back and all-time franchise leader in rushing yards, was shipped to Buffalo, and the Eagles got in return Kiko Alonso on a player-for-player trade. No picks involved. What are your initial thoughts on this, Dave?
I mean, my initial thoughts when this first happened, I had just left work and I checked my phone to see if anything happened on Twitter, because it had been a couple of minutes since I checked. And my reaction then was, wow. And that's really, I was just speechless. I couldn't believe that McCoy had been traded. Then I saw the part about getting Kiko Alonso, and I got extremely excited, because not only does he have the Oregon background that we all love to joke about, but he's an extremely talented linebacker and somebody who could very well be a cornerstone of this defense for the next 6 to 8 years if he can stay healthy. He has an injury problem. He had the torn ACL, or not necessarily a problem, but a history. I do believe that he's young enough to overcome it. He's younger than I am, and that's really, really awkward to say that, because I don't feel like I'm that old at all, but apparently I am. Point being, Alonso has a bright future ahead of him, and I think it's fantastic that the Eagles were able to get so much for a running back that it was rumored that they might just outright release.
Yeah, I also feel pretty good about this trade, though I was not excited at first, like you are.
I wasn't excited either. I have a McCoy jersey that I can't wear until he retires now.
Yeah, same here. It's pretty risky move for the Eagles, but I think it's also a high reward move if it pays out, because Alonso had a great season in 2013 with the Bills, and we all know the Oregon connection there with Chip Kelly, and this also offers the Eagles the opportunity to have 2 very fast and able to cover inside linebackers for their 3-4 seam. On the other hand, losing McCoy is a big blow for the offense, or at least it was a big blow at that time. But running backs are becoming expandable in this league, and McCoy will soon be 27 years old, so it's coming. The end of his most productive days is coming. So I think the Eagles did a very, very good deal. I'd like to have a pick or like a 5th or 6th rounder in there to make it a little bit more sweet. Yeah. For us, losing, Sadie. But in the end, if you look at it like with, trying to be objective, I think the Eagles did a nice trade there.
Well, I mean, the worst thing that could happen at this point is that the Eagles trade LeSean McCoy just to sign another 27-year-old running back, right? At least that's not happening. But wait. We'll get there. The quarterback market for Philadelphia, obviously, we knew that they were going to go into free agency with money to spend, and they were looking to spend it on their secondary. Byron Maxwell, former Seattle Seahawk, got a 6-year, $63 million contract to be the next man in Philadelphia. the top cornerback for years to come, we hope. What do you feel about the Maxwell signing, G? And do you really, really think that he's going to be worth the money?
I think like the mistake the Eagles did with Macklin, they avoided doing with Macklin. They did it with Maxwell. I think they overpaid big for him. I think he's a very good corner. He fits exactly what the Eagles want to do. He plays very good coverage, man-to-man. But on the other hand, we have to take into account that he won't have Cam Chancellor or Earl Thomas next to him anymore.
Oh, you can't say that name with me around. I'm going to start crying.
Okay, we can take a 5-minute break. So you finish crying and we keep on.
I'm always crying about Earl Thomas. Yeah.
I think it is a very good signing for the Eagles. I just don't feel very well about the money spent there.
Yeah, I can't really blame you. It was actually made up a little bit, though, with a 1-year contract signing for former Oregon Duck, former Seattle Seahawk, and most recent New York Giant, Walter Thurmond III. I'm really excited to have Thurman aboard. Personally, I think he's a great option who could very well end up being the opposite cornerback to Maxwell by the time we get to week 1. Gee, do you think that the Thurman deal is going to be of any significance, or do you think it was just Chip Kelly getting more of his guys?
Well, I know Thurman gets a lot of, the label of that he's a nickel corner, but on the other hand, if this signing happened a year ago, everybody would be excited. And on the other hand, he's also bigger than Boykin. He's not very much, taller, but he has greater wingspan, and I think he's more suited to play outside than Boykin is. So, yeah, I feel like it's a nice experiment, and he came to Philly on a 1-year deal, so yeah, I'm okay with that. It's not something like, okay, Kelly signed a former Oregon player. It's not like that. I think it's a good value signing that can pay out. If it doesn't pay out, you can move on, pretty easily. I don't know how you feel about it. My only issue is that every player that came to Philly this off-season has injury issues, or let's say a checkered injury past.
Yeah. I mean, Walter Thurman had the torn pectoral muscle, which is not a good injury to have at any point in your life, let alone being a cornerback in the NFL. I really hope that that's behind him. The Eagles definitely need the corner depth, and we'll just kind of have to see and trust Chip. But if it does work out that he stays healthy, he got a player that he knows very well, who has excelled in the Seattle Seahawks secondary, which granted, while you or me could probably not do too bad in the Seahawks secondary, it still says something that he was able to make a name for himself in that crowded secondary. So if all things go well, it'll be a very good signing. We almost had the hashtag Next Dawkins. I know that's kind of a popular topic on Twitter. Devin McCourty was almost a Philadelphia Eagle. Unfortunately, he'll be going back to New England on, I believe it was a 5-year contract that he signed. So pour one out. We're still looking for a safety, and Nate Allen is officially an Oakland Raider. So whole lot of safety movement, and the Eagles are getting absolutely none of them.
Yeah, I think they're happy with Jenkins playing the one safety position, and they're probably going to try and get a safety in this draft, probably high enough so they can get one of the best. Problem is that it's not a very deep draft class in the safety position. Jason McCourty, he's a very good player. It would be nice to have him in Philly. I'm not very aware of his play before the playoffs. He was not a player that I watched him, because I didn't watch the Patriots a lot this year. But I know that everybody was keen of him signing with the Eagles, so I can sense the disappointment, and I can understand it. I don't know how you feel about this.
Yeah, I mean, this one hurt me a little more because I follow Rutgers football. I have family lineage at Rutgers, some history there. So McCourty, I've watched Devin play for years and years and years and years. And following that into the NFL, seeing him become the success that you could tell he was going to be in college, he's exactly the kind of safety that the Eagles wanted, just because he comes from the Malcolm Jenkins mold as well. He was a cornerback at Rutgers, and then he made the transition to safety in New England. But he's been a second-team All-Pro at both positions, so that's never something that I'd turn away from having on this team. But best of luck with him in New England. I am a little mad that he's not an Eagle, because that would have been really, really nice to just finally put the safety talk away for a long time, given that it's been something that we've been talking about for years since the almighty Dawkins left us, but one day it will happen.
Anyways, let's move on. Let's go offense now. And the Eagles, who said they cut McCoy because it was a huge contract they had to get rid of. He was also approaching 27 years old. And guess who they wanted to bring to Philly? Frank Gore.
Yeah, there's nothing that makes more sense than saying a 27-year-old running back is too old, but Frank Gore is perfectly fine. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. It would have been a nice one-year stopgap, but there's no way that that's a sustainable plan.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a big fan of Frank Gore. I think he's probably the most durable back I can remember of. He defies that narrative that says running backs approaching 30 years old are not effective anymore. He's having 1,000 yard plus seasons almost all his pro career. And I would be fine if he signed with the Eagles. Too bad for him, he chose to go to the Colts. And then the Eagles pull off maybe the most surprising moves in this free agency. They sign both DeMarco Murray from the Cowboys and Ryan Matthews from the Chargers. And how do you see this playing out for the Eagles, Dave?
Ryan Matthews really surprised me. Not necessarily a fit, because I could see the north-south that Chip Kelly wanted to move his running back philosophy to. But it was surprising at the time because it just didn't make sense to replace somebody like LaShawn McCoy with Ryan Matthews, who hasn't been able to stay healthy his whole career. Not that McCoy has, but Matthews, it's one of those buy low contracts that could really help the Eagles if he's able to stay healthy and share the carries with DeMarco Murray, as we know, who's now a Philadelphia Eagle as well, or Chris Polk if he's around, or if there's a couple injuries, you still have Kenyon Barner around and Matthew Tucker. So there's a whole lot of blood, and I didn't even mention Darren Sproles there. I completely forgot about Darren Sproles. I don't even know how I did that. Point is, there's so many running backs on this team right now that it makes a lot of sense to add Matthews, because you're going to have to split these carries, and theoretically, the less pounding that these running backs take, the better chance they have of being healthy. As far as DeMarco Murray goes, that was the biggest shock of the offseason for me, including the quarterback stuff. I had no idea that Chip Kelly would be in the market to replace a 27-year-old running back with another 27-year-old running back.
And also more carries than McCoy last season.
Yeah, and I know the hot topic is, well, Murray has less carries in his career than LaShawn McCoy. That's because LaShawn McCoy was drafted 2 years before, and Murray's missed a lot more time. Of course he's going to have less carries. He's been out of action longer. But I guess I'm crossing my fingers with hope that this works out. I could see a couple ways it doesn't. How are you going to keep a bunch of running backs happy with only getting, maybe 15 carries a game max, or touches even, not even necessarily ball carrying? That's going to be a lot of egos and personalities to keep happy, and that's not even factoring in that sometimes Sam Bradford is going to have to pass the ball, but we'll talk about quarterbacks later.
Yeah, I think no running back on the Eagles this season is going to have more than 50% of the total carries. I think the load will be split in 3 or 4 parts. I don't know, not equal parts, of course. I think Murray and Matthews are going to carry this offense. And yeah, to me it's also puzzling, and I don't know, but I sense a little bit like the Eagles panicked after, trading McCoy, and they were left like with no running back except Sproles and Polk. But both these running backs are not running backs you consider, number one running backs that can pound the ball repeatedly game after game and carry your offense.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think the most disappointing part, not that I'm negatively viewing both of these moves, but the more disheartening situation of signing 2 running backs that you now allocated so much money to is the fact that this year's NFL draft is incredibly deep at running back. There's so many different options that this Eagles team could have gone with that were cheaper. Granted, they may not have the immediate success or expectations, but a guy like Amir Abdullah, Duke Johnson from Miami. There was a lot of talent that you could have had. TJ Yeldon as well in those mid rounds that honestly might have felt a little bit safer knowing, Matthews and Murray, they may tail off in a couple of years. And even if you were to go get a rookie and bring him in, they still might have the 7 to 8 year career at best, but at least you would be able to feel comfortable knowing that he's your guy and that there's not too much money allocated into a rookie running back for the first 4 years of his career. So that's why I feel like it may have been a safer option for this Eagles team to take a shot on one of the many backs coming out of college instead of all of this money into proven yet somewhat question mark for health reason running back.
Yeah, exactly. And I really don't know what the plan was because it looked like, okay, Ryan Matthews is the guy we get, and then we probably draft a guy in the draft. But once the Marco Mare rumors came up, I thought like, okay, they're not going after Matthews anymore. And in the end, they signed both his running backs. Truth be told, though, they cost less than McCoy cost alone.
Absolutely. That is probably the single saving grace of acquiring all of this talent with so many, health questions, is that they're still managing to get so much more for their money than they would have with McCoy. And that's factoring in Murray, Matthews, and Alonso, if I'm not mistaken. All three of those guys will be counting less against the cap in 2015 than McCoy would have had he stayed.
Yeah, because Alonso is still on his rookie deal. So, yeah, he's still not being paid the money he should be being paid.
We'll just kind of have to see what it plays out as. So, we talked with Ben Natan of Football Savages because we wanted to save the most important topic as far as the offseason transactions, which is obviously the quarterbacks. So we're going to play now our interview with Ben, and we'll see you right back here after this to do the first ever By The Talons mailbag. How you doing, Ben? Thanks for joining us at By The Talons.
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing really well. Ben, we just talked about all of the other free agency news and transactions that have happened, but we wanted to save the big one for you because we know it means the most. The Bradford-Foles trade. Nick Foles is gone. Sam Bradford is now the Eagles quarterback, which I'm sure you have some sort of opinion about. How's that sitting with you?
It's difficult for me for a lot of reasons to digest this whole situation. But I think starting out with the positives, I think it's important to highlight the positives of this, is on the field as a player, you're getting a better quarterback with Sam Bradford than you would be with Nick Foles. Everyone likes to talk about Nick Foles and the season that he had in 2013. And for a while, I was one of those people. I was a Nick Foles truther.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
So to speak. And I was excited about everything. And you saw in 2014 the issues that he had the year before not only didn't improve, but regressed. And he really regressed overall as a player. And that was a worrying situation. His mechanics weren't good. He was making poor decisions. His accuracy was completely off. He would often leave a completely clean pocket, which was baffling to me because he's not a running quarterback, and he was playing like a running quarterback. And it was just so frustrating to watch him and watch the quarterbacks overall play in this offense and really limit the entire team when you had wide receivers streaking down the field completely open in a lot of these games. And it was so frustrating to watch. So positively looking at this Bradford situation, you're getting a guy who in his healthy playing time, he looked a lot better in the pocket. He was a lot better making decisions. He's a better arm than Nick. He's more accurate than Nick was. He can move around a little bit better. So as a player, you're getting an upgrade at quarterback, but, and this is a humongous in bold, but health. And this is why the trade is so baffling to me, because Chip has gone on record countless times talking about, durability, especially at the quarterback position. And that was one of the biggest indicators at the end of the season as to why he would move on from Nick Foles, because Nick never got through an entire season healthy. His rookie year, he ended up with a concussion. Last year, he got a concussion. And this year, he had the broken collarbone issue. So you have a coach talk about the importance of durability, and I, for one, agree with him. I think durability is incredibly important, especially at the most important position on your team.
Right.
And then you bring in a guy who has played 2 full NFL seasons due to torn ACLs and he broke his collarbone in college, and someone who's just really been banged up his entire career.
Yeah, it didn't really make a lot of sense. This was my issue with the trade. When it first happened, I thought immediately of the durability comment that we've heard Chip Kelly make since he's been the head coach, and it seemed bizarre that someone who harps so much on health would take one of the few quarterbacks who's been banged up more than Nick Foles.
Right, and one thing that we can say lots and lots of things about Chip Kelly, but he's definitely not stupid. I mean, this is a brilliant football mind. So this idea that he would so blatantly contradict himself is just baffling to me, and really is kind of feeding this narrative that there's something else going on that a lot of us aren't seeing with this whole quarterback trade.
Ben, can I ask you something? If you try to distance yourself from the Eagles and you look at this trade, like what the Eagles gave to the Rams and what they got back, who would you say won that trade right now?
That's such a tough question, because so much is predicated on Bradford's health. And looking at it, I think it would be fair to say that, oh God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Rams look to have won this trade, just in this moment, because they traded away a quarterback who cost $12 million, who couldn't stay healthy on the field, and they got a second-round pick and a quarterback who might not be. I mean, Nick Foles isn't a good quarterback, but he has the potential to be at least average.
Hey, come on. He was a Pro Bowl MVP. Come on.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Come on.
But if you can get an average starter with that Rams team that, loves to run the ball and has a superb defensive line, you could win 10 games maybe, if you're not asking Nick to do a lot. And maybe I'm overestimating him just a little bit, because I've really only seen him play well in the Philadelphia system. But I at this moment, given Bradford's health and Bradford's price tag, both as a cap hit and what we gave up for him in terms of draft picks, it looks like the Rams brought in the better haul.
Yeah, that second-round pick is what swings it in St. Louis's favor for me.
Yeah.
All right. We saw you tweet countless times before the trade that the Eagles do whatever it takes to trade up and get in position to draft Marcus Mariota from Oregon. Do you think now this is still a possibility for the Birds, or do you think it's officially over and Sam Bradford is the future starter?
See, this is something that I've really fought with the past couple of days internally, because
and externally, if you ask Twitter.
Yeah, that's true. But realistically, you look at this whole thing, and on the surface, it's like, okay, well, you have Bradford, and you're probably going to try to go into the year with Bradford, but considering what we gave up for him. But then you kind of look a little bit deeper, and you look at the press conference, and you look at everything that Chip has been saying about Marcus Mariota, and, you don't call a guy Peyton Manning with 4.5 speed and not want to get him. You don't call a guy the best quarterback in the draft within the same breath of saying that the team needed a quarterback and not try to get him. Yeah, in the same, and this is kind of a joke among, Eagles fans, people who follow the team. In the same press conference that he said that he would not be trading up for Marcus Mariota, he also said that Brandon Boykin would get a shot at competing on the outside of the defense. Now, anyone who's actually watched the team the past 2 years and the abysmal play overall that we've gotten from Bradley Fletcher and Kerry Williams, while Brandon Boykin killed it in the slot, would know that the team gave him no opportunity at all to play on the outside. So that made me question how truthful he was being overall in that entire press conference. And then you have this whole thing with the first round pick getting offered by the Browns for Sam Bradford. And also today a report came out that a lot of people around the league believe that the Eagles traded for Sam Bradford in order to move him to Tennessee in order to get to that number 2 pick. So every single time I try to distance myself from the idea of trading up to get Marcus Mariota, more things come out that reaffirm my belief that that is the end game here.
It may be the end game, but just wanted to touch on a quick point you were talking about as far as wanting to go up and get Mariota. Don't you think that Chip Kelly complimenting him so profusely would hurt his case, knowing that the Titans or whoever he needs to move up for can now ask for the moon, knowing that he's head over heels about Marcus?
That's true, but during the press conference, it was interesting because he was talking about how great Mariota was, but also talking about how they would never try to, mortgage the future, so to speak, on moving up for a quarterback in the draft. And to me, that could have come across as saying the asking price right now is too high.
Okay.
And maybe Chip is trying to play with Tennessee or maybe even Tampa a little bit, in terms of trying to work this trade, but really we don't know. Everything is speculation. But it's just a lot of things don't really make sense. So much of this Bradford trade, as we already touched on, doesn't really make sense in terms of the team philosophy and how they went about everything. And the fact that you gave up a second round pick for a guy and the team hasn't even approached him about an extension yet.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And also the fact, and this is kind of just talking to trade ammo, the fact that the team currently has 3 starting inside linebackers, and haven't even talked to D'Amico Ryans about taking a pay cut, which is really weird. Which makes me think that possibly the team looks at one of them as being expendable, possibly in a trade.
I could see that. I just hope it's not Kendricks. I know that's the hot topic. I really like him, and I did see the report that the Eagles coaches may not be as high on him as the fans, but I still think that's unfortunate given the potential.
I agree with that.
So, last point on quarterbacks before we keep moving here. Sam Bradford, in a short time in Philadelphia, already helped recruit DeMarco Murray. My question is, if this Mariota trade happens, what happens with DeMarco Murray? He's now angry. He just signed a massive deal to play with this quarterback who may not be here.
I think that if the end game was to get Marcus Mariota, then I feel like they probably would have talked to Murray about that during the negotiations, because it would just be a little bit unprofessional to get a guy, to trade for a guy, then have that guy recruit another player, bring that player in with the promise that this player is going to be here, and then trade him away. Actually, at this point, I really wouldn't put it past Chip to do something like that, but it would be a little bit iffy.
Yeah.
It would kind of hurt chemistry.
Yeah, unless they're planning to trade both of them, which is a little bit crazy, but right now I wouldn't be surprised with even that.
Nothing is out of the realm of possibility right now with this football team.
Because they still signed Matthews, so this is a little bit, makes you think a little bit more.
Right, and Polk is still here too. The team has 4 running backs who, to some capacity, have proven that they can carry the load for a team.
We also saw Todd Herman's being cut some days ago. Right now the team has a hole at right guard. Ben, what do you think is the plan there? You think they're planning to draft some guy high, and who do you see?
Well, a report came out either early in the season or in the preseason that the team was very high internally on their depth guys in the interior offensive line. Guys like Matt Tobin and David Molk. The coaching staff really love those two guys. So I could see one of them getting a shot playing that right guard spot, but I wouldn't rule out anything in terms of drafting a guy, even in the first round, to play that guard spot and possibly kick out to tackle eventually.
Sounds like you're getting at Jake Fisher. Am I wrong or right there?
I mean, that's the logical. That would be the logical fit here. I mean, we're talking about a guy who is one of the best athletes to test at tackle in a long time, just from an agility perspective, and his tape is very good as well. And he could easily play at right tackle or left guard or right guard. And Oregon, all the lazy narrative parts of the equation are there as well. He's he got injured a few times too, which will fit into things nicely.
Yeah.
But I mean, he would be a great pick at 20, theoretically, to play right guard and then eventually kick him out to right tackle when Lane eventually moves to left tackle.
All right. I'll give you 3 names of 3 Eagles players, and I want you to say to me if you think they're going to be on the final roster or they will be traded or cut before the new season begins. Let's start with Michael Kendricks.
I think D'Amico still being here is a little bit of an indictment on Kendricks' chances of being with the team at the start of next season. And it really pains me to say that because I think Kendricks is a phenomenal player, but I feel like the team thinks that they could probably move him in a trade if that is the plan.
Brandon Boykin.
I mean, they talked about Boykin in the press conference. They said that he would have a chance to compete on the outside at that number 2 corner spot, which is really iffy to me given how little opportunity he was given before to do that. But looking at the corner depth on the team, the team just signed Byron Maxwell, so he's probably going to be the number 1 corner. And the team also signed Walter Thurman to a 1-year deal. But I think that he has more experience playing in the slot, so I think him, Boykin, and Carroll are probably going to compete for that number 2 corner spot if what Chip was saying is true. So I think Boykin probably has a much better shot at being with the team at the start of next season than Kendricks, which is crazy to say.
All right, and last but not least, Vinny Curry.
I think he's destined to stay on the team because one, the team hasn't actually picked up Cedric Thornton's tender yet. I don't think there's really been no movement with that whole situation. And the way that Curry was used last year on the defense, they took Kendricks out on passing downs a lot of the time. Not Kendricks, Thornton. They took Thornton out on passing downs a lot of the time. Replaced him with Curry. And they also used Curry all over the defensive line. They would use him out at 9 tech or 7 tech, at 5 tech, 3 tech. I mean, they lined him up everywhere, specifically on passing downs. And he was phenomenal as a pure pass rusher for this team. And I think Billy Davis really values his versatility and what he does. So I would say he's basically a sure thing to make the team.
And Curry's an interesting case, too, because when Chip was hired, it wasn't seen how good of a fit he would be in a 3-4 at defensive end. It was kind of assumed naturally that he would try to move to linebacker. So to see him become kind of the jack-of-all-trades plug and play and getting results is actually really impressive, and I would be very disappointed if they got rid of him.
Yeah, I would be upset by that for various reasons, because not only is he a great player, he's fantastic in the locker room. And him being a local guy too, he's from Neptune, New Jersey. So I mean, he does a lot of work in the community, and I mean, he's just a great player to have on the team, both from a character standpoint and also the dynamic that he brings to the field. It would be a huge mistake if the team were to try to get rid of him.
Yeah, and I feel like it's an underrated narrative that he's a lifelong Philadelphia Eagle fan.
Yeah.
We should be rocking that one more as part of the Eagles community and making him our guy.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
So, if the Eagles stay at 20, quarterback drama aside, who would be your favorite pick there?
Probably my favorite pick We touched on Jake Fisher. I think I think the fit with Jake Fisher would just be too good to pass up at 20. And I also think that Eric Rowe, the corner out of Utah, would be a really, really great fit as well, because not only does he kind of fit the physical mold of what the Eagles want in a corner, 6'1", long arms, very physical at the line of scrimmage. He does all of that very well, but he also can play safety. And the team really hasn't addressed that other safety spot. And Rowe could be a guy who can come in and possibly take over at that other safety spot. And he can come down in the box, and he can he's a very strong tackler, very smart player, and he can also play over the top. He has the ability to track the ball over the top and make plays on it. And I think that would be a really phenomenal pick just from a fit standpoint. So one of those two guys would probably be my favorites at that spot.
Yeah, favorite, I mean, it could be fit or it could be just personal preference, but let's talk about who you absolutely would not want at 20th.
Landon Collins would probably be, Landon Collins was a guy that a couple months ago I was really high on because, you had this 6 foot, 230 pound safety who would, make running backs pay for coming up and make guys pay for coming across the middle of the field. And that's just kind of like a fun player to watch. And you're like, all right, I want that guy on my football team. And then when you actually sit down and you break the film down, you see a guy who's really limited athletically in terms of moving side to side, and really a guy who needs to be pigeonholed into a strong safety spot and covering the underneath parts of the field. I wouldn't really trust him at that deep safety position. And the Eagles like to move their safeties around a lot. They don't really like those defined roles. So taking such a limited player at 20 would really bother me. And I think he would end up being a liability given our scheme.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it reminds me of last year's draft talk when Calvin Pryor, he was the hot name for a bit, and it was kind of the situation you're talking about, where he's a perfect fit for what Rex wants out of his strong safety. At the time, he was the coach. But for the Eagles, with that coverage-oriented safeties over the run support, definitely would not have been as good of a fit.
Right, and that was a big issue with Nate Allen here, where Nate Allen was competent at the very least in terms of covering the underneath parts of the field and working as a run defender, but as soon as you asked him to cover over the top, it was a disaster. And I don't want to see that again.
Yeah.
So I would have issues with the team taking Landon Collins at 20.
I know that's going to make a lot of Eagles fans upset. The safety crew, the ones who have been waiting years and years for the answer. But I mean, it's better to take a good fit than a bad fit, obviously. Even if it's
our safety will come soon, even if it's next year. But
one day
it'll happen eventually.
Yeah. So real quick, let's finish this up here. Pick a sleeper currently on the roster to make the 53-man following final cuts.
Oh, it has to be an Oregon player, doesn't it?
Will Murphy finally gets his chance.
Yeah. Speaking of safeties, I think that Ed Reynolds probably has a really good chance to make the team. He was a 5th-round pick last year, who ended up on the practice squad for, I think, the entire season.
Yes.
But everything I've heard about Reynolds is that he's working really hard. He looks really good. And especially at the position where the team has some of the least depth on the roster, you could see him possibly come in and push Earl Wolf for one of the roster spots at safety.
It gets you really excited for the season when it's Earl Wolf versus Ed Reynolds, right?
Oh, you have no idea.
I could see that. I know Jerome Copeland III is another name that's been thrown around, known as the Osprey for that massive wingspan he has. Either one of those two guys would be really nice to see step up.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so real quick, before we let you go, Ben, pick one surprise move that we may have alluded to earlier or not. It could be a trade or a cut that you think happens between now and the NFL draft.
I think that something might go down with our quarterback, our current franchise quarterback, Sam Bradford. But that's a little obvious at this point. So I'm going to say that the Eagles are going to make a play to trade for a veteran wide receiver.
Who would you have in mind there?
Who would I have in mind?
Yeah, just speculation or someone that you'd like to see that may be on the market.
And I haven't really delved in. Oh, the thing that really bothered me the other day is the fact that the Saints traded Kenny Stills to the Dolphins, because I think Kenny Stills would have been awesome here.
Yeah.
But I'm not positive about who the Eagles would make a play for, but I am positive that they are trying to make a play for a wide receiver, a veteran wide receiver, be it through trade or maybe looking into the spare parts bin of free agency right now.
Yeah, the market's getting pretty thin there, but I definitely agree it will happen at some point. That's a signing that's probably one of the biggest holes left on the roster, so it makes absolute sense for them to cover it. All right, well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us on By The Talons. We really appreciate it. Make sure you follow Ben at Ben Natan FS. Ben, again, dude, thanks. It's been a blast.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
All right, that was Ben Natan of Football Savages. Awesome to get him on the show. We've wanted to talk to him for quite a while. It's very cool that this would be the opportunity we had to do it. So thank you again, Ben, for joining us. Gee, guess what? Awesome news. We actually got questions now for the first ever By The Talons mailbag. So Chemical Sandman wants to know, has Chip Kelly gone mad? You go first.
No, I don't think Kelly has gone mad. Like Ben said, Kelly is very smart. The only difference is that this year he can do whatever he wants. Almost whatever he wants. Like, he doesn't have to take into account Howie Roseman's opinion, because Howie is now doing only contract talks and budget management. So Kelly's now calling all shots when it comes to personnel. So he does exactly what he wants to do. It may seem bold. It might be different from what most teams are doing, which is, changing one or two or three pieces each of season and not going, on a complete.
The breakdown, the big rebuild.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you are a rebuilding team, which the Eagles are not. But no, definitely I wouldn't call him mad.
Yeah, I'd have to take a quick nod off of one of your points there. The reason why this feels so strange to see this major upheaval of talent is because the Eagles have went 10-6 in back-to-back years. If this was 2013, take a time travel. It's now 2013 and Chip Kelly just took over the 4-12 Eagles. I don't think that this would surprise anybody. The reason why it appears like he's absolutely lost his mind is because we've seen some success with the players that he's had to work with. And now, going into his third season as coach, now he decides it's not good enough. So, perspective is everything, and I think fans right now are expecting Chip to build off of the promise that the past 2 years of Eagles football have had, as opposed to kind of blow it all up and start from scratch and kind of hope it works out. But if anybody knows what he wants, it's got to be Chip Kelly.
So, second question. Which wide receiver do you think is best suited to fit this run-based offense? From I Am DSPN. I don't know if this is a free agent wide receiver or a draft wide receiver, so you can choose whoever you want.
I think if you're talking about run-based offense, Kenny Bell is one of the best blockers in college football. He's probably the best wideout in terms of blocking in this whole draft. He's probably going to be a late 4th to early 6th round guy. I could really see him succeeding. I don't think that he's going to be the answer, so he's not best suited to become a future Pro Bowler. There's other guys that you get for that. But if you're strictly talking about who's going to help the run, that's Kenny Bell.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go with someone who is more of a wide receiver who also blocks well. And for me, it's Sammy Coates. I also mentioned him in our previous episode. I think he's a very good wide receiver. He still is raw at some points, but he's very good at blocking. And he has the strength and the frame required to be effective as a blocker, because he can keep the cornerback at a distance and block him effectively. I think he's also very good as a receiver. He has some issues when he needs to locate the ball or, make difficult cuts, but I think he has a lot of potential, and I would be happy if the Eagles decided to pick him in the second round, or, trade up a little bit in the third and snatch him if he's still there.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be a great pick. CD Jones 34 gave us 3 options. If the Eagles are on the board, who's the pick? Jake Fisher, Dorial Green-Beckham, or Jalen Collins?
I assume we're talking talking about the first round here, right?
Yes. If the Eagles were on the board the first round and it was Jake Fisher, Dorial Green-Beckham, or Jalen Collins, offensive tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, who's the pick?
I wouldn't be mad at any of these 3. I'd like to see Fisher, because I also like Dorial Green-Beckham, but I don't think he's on the Eagles board at all. And I probably think it's Fisher. I don't think Collins is going to get drafted in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, out of the 3 given, the Eagles threw a lot of money into cornerback, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them address it at some point in the draft, but it's not a first-round need, in my opinion, at this time. Jake Fisher, however, will kill 2 birds with 1 stone as becoming a day 1 starting guard and the heir to right tackle once Lane Johnson gets kicked out to left. So I think that's the no-brainer answer at this point. I mean, that kind of just spoiled our next question, unfortunately, from Sandrock86. What's the best way to fix this offensive line in the draft? I think Jake Fisher's a great start.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm happy with Fisher even if he's drafted in the first round.
Yeah. I mean, if you run into a situation in the second round where some talent drops, like South Carolina's A.J. Cann, that happened to me when I did a FanSpeak mock draft. So certainly I don't expect it to happen, but if you're in a situation to add another potential long-term starter at guard in the second round, whether it's Cann or other prospects, I think you absolutely have to pull the trigger at that point, even if there is a cornerback on the market, because it doesn't matter who is playing quarterback if nobody can protect him.
Exactly. And another issue here is, like, we're talking offensive line, having in mind that the only missing piece is right guard, the replacement of Todd Hermans. But we also don't know if Ivan Mathis is going to be on the team, because he's supposedly on the trade block. So, this question might be different a week from now.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of saying in the second round you should still be looking at offensive line, because even if Mathis stays in 2015, which I don't think is going to happen at this rate, he's still, you need to have a replacement ready soon.
Yeah, he's 34 years old, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Elijah 21, if I'm reading this right. Do you think the Eagles can have 2 1,000-yard rushers with Murray and Matthews?
Absolutely not. We may have 1 1,000-yard rusher, depending on how Chip Kelly wants to allocate these carries, but I think it's absolutely out of the question to expect Murray and Matthews or even Sproles to come close to 1,000 if there's already another back who does so.
Yeah, and I mean, if they both come close, it will be probably because one of them was injured for a number of games. Because I can see Murray definitely, the starter going over 1,000 yards, but then the other guy would be like 500 or 600 yards, best case scenario.
Yeah.
So if they both come close to 1,000 yards, I think, probably that will be because someone will take the first role from the other.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though. I mean, I hope that we have 2 1,000-yard rushers, because you know what that means? It means the Eagles were leading in a lot of football games and running out clock.
Okay, we have 2 questions from World of Mondo here. First one, where does a wide receiver come from this year?
Ben alluded to free agent wide receiver or trade for a veteran wide receiver, and I could see that being the answer, but I still have to go with the draft. I think that this year is an extremely deep wideout class. Chip Kelly said as much in his press conferences over the last week that if they couldn't find a receiver elsewhere, or not that if they couldn't, but they were excited to dig into the wideout class since they were very enamored by the players in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Eagles are going to get a wide receiver in the draft and not via trade or free agency, because they already have made enough moves, and after the trade for Sam Bradford, they don't have many picks to trade unless they don't care very much about this year's draft, which I don't think is the case. And last question, if Mariota falls to number 20, do you think it's a no-brainer or the Eagles look for another position?
Where do I start? I think if Marcus Mariota is on the board at number 20, Chip Kelly will go from the war room, assumingly in Philadelphia, all the way to Chicago to make the pick himself.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one too. I think, to make it even more clear, I think if Mariota is there at number 15 or 16, I can see the Eagles trading up to get him. Doesn't matter if they have Sam Bradford and Mark Sanchez already on the roster. I think this will be a move that Kelly would like to make, and I really think it will also be a right move, even if you don't necessarily need start another quarterback, because it's a move that might help you in the future. You remember last year when we talked about Teddy Bridgewater, if the Eagles should get him, even though they don't need a quarterback, because last year we all thought Nick Foles is the starter.
Yeah.
Right now, this would look totally different. If the Eagles picked Bridgewater last year, it would be a pick that most fans wouldn't like. But right now, most of them would be okay with it. So
right.
I think it's the same with Marcus Mariota this season. If he is close to the Eagles pick, I can see the Eagles getting there to pick him.
Absolutely. I mean, we're a month out, or a month and change out from the NFL draft. The Eagles just traded for Sam Bradford, and we are still talking about the Eagles maybe trading up into the top 5 for Mariota. So if he is at 20, absolutely. No question. That about does it for this week's episode of By The Talons. We do want to announce in episode 3, in 2 weeks, we'll be talking to Johnny Page, a writer inside the Eagles, good friend of ours. We're really excited to get him on and talk about some more football, any other transactions that happen between this episode and the next one, as well as zoning in on the NFL draft. We are getting extremely close. We need to start making decisions and see who the next Philadelphia Eagles class is going to be.
And it will probably be the only Eagles-related podcast where 2 Europeans and only one American will be.
That's true, yeah. Johnny Page in the UK, George in Greece, and I'm sitting here in Texas, which is awkward because I'm, an Eagles fan. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at By The Talons, and check the description for links to either SoundCloud, YouTube, whichever one you're viewing on. We'll have the opposite there. Make sure you download the show if you can't listen to it long enough on SoundCloud. And if you're on YouTube, go to SoundCloud and download it. Thank you again for tuning into episode 2 of By The Talons, and we will see you in 2 weeks for episode 3.